Hey everybody, I hope you're doing well. My name's William. This is Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. Today I'm going to be flying the Beechcraft Bonanza. We're going to start here in Najima, Japan. We're going to stop over in Kozushima and then finally go on and land in Miyagi. This should be a pretty short little flight, so I hope you can join me for it all and enjoy it. Hopefully it goes pretty smoothly. Let's go ahead and get on into the flight. Alright, so here we are. We're on the ramp here at Najima. We got to get the airplane all started up, so we're going to go ahead and start going through the procedures to get that one done. Get the parking brake on, make sure everything else is off. We've got, let's see, our fuel selector here. We're on our left tank. Go ahead and go down the rest of it. Alright, so I need to get the battery and alternators on here. Before we start the engine, just going to take a look. We'll go ahead and set the mixture to rich. Prop full. Let's see, throttle to full for some reason. I assume that's just to make sure it is got the full range. We'll go ahead and get the boost pump going. And let's see, open the throttle 1/4 of an inch. That boost pump off and hit the magnetos here. Got the engine up and running, throttle up to 1,000, and just make sure we check everything's in the green. Cylinder head temperature is going to go ahead and come on up. As we get through all of this, go ahead and open up these cowl flaps. We'll keep it closed until we're ready for takeoff. Actually, let's get the engine nice and warmed up. Alright, so it should be a nice little short flight here. Go ahead and turn on the avionics. This plane has a really nice cockpit. So, I do actually, a little trivia, I do have a pilot's license and my instrument rating. I am so far out of currency that it is not even funny, but I'm going to see if I can remember any of it here. I'm not going to mess with the ATC or anything today. I just keep it nice and casual. I've already forgotten. Oh, we've killed a man. He shouldn't be standing there. I've already forgotten to deal with the lights, but that's no big problem. Just get those going. Before we take the runway here, we'll finish that up. Get the strobe lights going. And now we just got to taxi out onto the runway here. We're going to go off to the right. Get the flaps into the takeoff position. This Microsoft Flight Sim, the new one, really does just blow my mind compared to old flight sims. Flight Simulator 2004, I think, was initially the one that I really got into. First got me into flight sims whenever I was way younger, and then more of an X-plane kind of person from there on. A little bit of Flight Simulator 10 or X, but this is a completely different ball game from the little amount of time I've put into it so far. It is absolutely amazing. And this used to be some of my favorite airports to kind of fly around, these little islands in Japan, or off of the main island of Japan. There's some really cool little tiny strips for some smaller planes if, you know, you get kind of bored of flying the bigger airliners and stuff like that. Should be a nice short flight though today, especially this thing's got some performance to it. So alright, we're all lined up here. Runway 11. We're going to depart and make a right hand turn, fly down the island, and start heading off towards our first stop. So let's go full power and release the brakes here. We only have 2,500 feet roundabout to get this thing up in the air. A lot of right rudder. Keep this thing nice and straight. I'm going to look for about 70 rotate it. Nice and gentle. Get the gear coming up, trying to clean it up. And we'll go for a right-hand turn out. Already not using the rudder the way I should, not keeping it nice and coordinated. But you can just see as we kind of come around these islands, they are so stinking cool. They're small, little, tiny islands here. You can take a look out the right side, and it's kind of the middle of nowhere. These little, tiny, cool airstrips. Keep the climb up. I'm not going to go up too high. It's a really short trip, so we just kind of go down the coast here, and that is our next stop. Is going to be up in front of us just a little bit, so we should have another island off over to our right in between the two, which is pretty flat. No airport there though, and we'll be landing on the south side, I believe, of the island directly out the window now. So we're just going to climb it up. We'll climb it up to about 1,500 feet and just kind of hang out there. A little bit of turbulence coming over the terrain. That's really cool, actually. You get the turbulence as you're kind of flying over the ridge. It's very realistic. I do not miss that too much from real life. Never got to fly anything quite like this. The plane I actually got the majority, well, the planes I got the majority of my hours in are in flight sim, but they're pretty generic and pretty boring. Cessna 152 and 172. I have a decent amount of time in a Diamond DA-20, which is also in the sim. It's a lot of fun to fly. The plane is so fun in real life. Alright, we're nice and leveled out here at about 1,500 feet. I'll just throttle it back and kind of trim the plane out. Keep hand flying. I would normally bring the prop back, but I'm just going to let it sit there. It's a nice short flight. We don't need to take it too seriously either for this first one. So the GPS is already mapped up. I could just follow that line, but I'm going to go ahead and kind of go around off the west side of this island and circle in. This airstrip is really cool. There's a lot of fancy, you know, popular, like, world's top 10 most difficult airports and stuff that people would probably look at before looking at this airport, but it's pretty unique. You're kind of just up on this little tiny kind of mound. It's a pretty small airstrip as well. It'd be pretty fun to see how big of an airplane you could get into it, but without the experience, I don't quite feel confident yet flying some of the bigger stuff in the sim. And I've heard some of the airliners and whatnot, which is not really surprising, but some of the airliners just aren't the greatest. It's pretty hard to model them exactly the way they should be, though, in all fairness. So once again, we're just going to fly around the west side here and kind of loop it around, get a sighting of the airport, and not going to worry too much about doing a pattern over it or anything like that. Just nice casual flight today. I know it's not racing. I know it's not a set of course of competition. If you're a regular viewer on my channel, this is probably pretty out of the normal, but if you're not, welcome. I hope. If nothing else, maybe if you're into flight sims, you'll go try these airports out, because this, like I said, these little islands off of the main island of Japan, there's some really cool airports out here, some really beautiful scenery as well. And there's so much to explore in Microsoft Flight Sim. I just feel like some of the terrain's a little bit funky. We'd probably deal with optimizing the settings a little bit more, but it is quite beautiful. So we're going to circle all the way around the island here and come up on the airport. It should be showing up on the map exactly where it is. If I remember correctly, it's on the very southern tip of it down here somewhere. It has been a minute since I've flown too, so this may not be the prettiest landing in the world, but we'll see what we can do. Let's go ahead and start throttling back a little bit. And this is actually setting us up for a pretty decent but short base to final leg for the runway here. So we'll go ahead and power it on down. See the town over there. It's pretty neat. I really do wonder what this would be like in real life, in all honesty. Some of these places that you can go in flight sims, it's amazing. Let's go ahead and start getting some flaps out. We got the airport right over there. We're going to turn a short final leg here in just a moment. Still need to bring that speed down. Once we're on final, we'll go ahead and go full landing flaps. Let's go ahead and start the turn now. It's a little bit late, so we're going to have to bank quite a bit. I can hear my instructor yelling at me. I have PTSD. That wasn't so bad. We are low though.
500.
Be able to see over the glare shield here a little bit. We're low, that's fine. We'll just hold this. Hold about 70 knots. It's probably too slow for this plane. Not an expert on it though. Aiming for those 1,000-foot markers. Power out. Perfect. Let's go ahead and get it slowed down. We'll just do a U-turn basically here at the end and get everything configured again and launch back off, and we'll head on to the next airport where we're going to conclude today's flight. That went a lot better than expected, to be honest. That was a pretty low approach. Pretty aggressive final turn as well, but like I said, this is really just for fun at this point. This is something that I would like to get a little bit more into, take a little bit more seriously and do some proper flights, but for today, this is like the first day I really got a chance to sit down and properly play this, so. Alright, let's go ahead, before I forget, let's go ahead and open up the cowl flaps a little bit. Make sure the engine stays cool enough. Let's hold the brakes, full power, and release. Get that right rudder in, keep it on the center line. Airspeed's alive. Forgot to put the flaps out, that would have been bad. Shouldn't do that on the roll, but it's all good. Rotate. And a nice, smooth climb out positive rate gears coming up. So because of the terrain, we're going to do a left-hand turn out here. If that's legitimately a house down there, that is impressive. It'd be really cool to go to some of these places, man. I don't know, maybe it's where I live in America. It's kind of flat and boring, but these little kind of remote locations like this are really intriguing to me. Let's get the flaps up. Go ahead and get established on our course. It's a little bit of a jump over to the next island, just off of our nose. Once again, I think we'll just cruise it on over at about 1,500 feet, so we'll get up to that and level out. We don't need to be right on the line either, just visually fly it over to that island now. Coming up to 1,500, we'll start reducing our climb here a little bit. Get it nice and leveled out there. Pretty good, and we're on course. Start trimming the plane as we build up our speed. We'll go ahead and reduce power a little bit. That's something I could hardly ever do in flight training. Flying a little 152. Me, I'm not exactly the smallest person. My instructor wasn't either. We needed all that thing had as far as engine power just to get us off the ground some days. Especially with how hot it was and how thin the air would get with the density altitude because of that. It's absolutely crazy. I hated flying that thing. I bet it was more fun by yourself, but I never soloed in one, so I wouldn't know. 172s were, it was pretty crazy actually, the amount of performance you gained whenever you dumped a person out of it, so 152, I'm sure it'd actually be even better, just how tiny that airplane is. So we've got a nice little jaunt on over. It's crazy just seeing these little islands out in the middle of nothing in the Pacific Ocean. It's kind of like flying around the Caribbean is really cool too for the same reason. It's just those, you know, some of the little tiny islands with airports on them in basically the middle of the Atlantic. They're beautiful, but like I said, a bunch of those are, you know, they're really well known, really popular, and places like out here and the South Pacific and stuff like that, there's some really cool little remote small airstrips that are a ton of fun to fly into and see. Especially if you start adding some weather to the situation, it makes for a pretty entertaining flight, pretty challenging flight too. I used to take these flight sims pretty darn seriously back whenever I was younger. And I still cannot believe quite how far they've come compared to, I said, if you want to compare this to Flight Simulator 2004, this is, you can't even really believe it's the same genre. I'm sure some people kind of say that about the F1 games and stuff like that too, though. Any kind of game that's progressed for that many years, it's pretty amazing to see how far they come. This plane seems pretty straightforward though. Should probably take a look here. Does it say we're about 13 miles away on the proper bearing? Getting a little bit of a fuel imbalance, so we can just go ahead and come down here and pop it over to the right tank. It's one thing I don't like. It's a little bit harder to kind of move around the cockpit and still maintain your control in a sim than it would be in real life. You just kind of reach down and click it over, visually confirm what you're doing, but got to take my hands off the controls. I'm not a huge fan of that. I guess I could flip it over to autopilot, but kind of defeats the point of this little short flight. So I guess we'll kind of take a look here. Go ahead and zoom that out a little bit. Every single time I take my hands off the controls, it just proves that I don't have the plane as trimmed out as I would like. it is what it is. So we're going to have to fly, the airport's on the other side of the island, so we're going to the east side here. This looks like a volcano that blew its top off at some point, which I guess that's basically what all these islands are at some point. So we'll go ahead and just actually kind of maintain around this altitude. There's nothing wrong with that. We're going to go around the south side of the island and set up for an approach into the airport. I think the runway runs kind of sort of northeast southwest on that side, so either way we go, we should be able to just kind of hug the island around into a final for the runway. Another little small airport here. I wonder if anybody actually does this. You know, has just like a little plane. They just kind of hop between the islands for business or to see, you know, people. They kind of use this as a car instead of a, you know, I'd imagine boats or ferries or something are the common way of travel. But having a little private airplane, which I'm not even really too sure of what the general aviation traffic is like in Japan, but I know at least here in the United States it's a really large portion of our air traffic, so that'd be pretty neat to be able to just kind of hop between islands. I'm sure they're pretty small. There's probably not a huge amount going on either one of them, but nevertheless, it would be a pretty cool way to kind of transport yourself around. Looks like there'd be some good hiking up there, though. That's for sure. Thoughts nobody else has. Alright, so just going around the south end of it here, about 5 miles away. We're just going to hold, like I said, around this 1,200, 1,100 feet. Somewhere around this range. All our temps are okay, so I guess did a decent job of keeping the engine nice and cool anyways. Probably screwed up some of the procedures, but in fact I know I did, nevertheless. That landing went a lot better than I was expecting it to for how rusty I am, so those are the bits that count, the takeoff and then the landing. Everything else in between can be a little bit shaky as long as those two key factors are smooth. Just going to kind of follow the southern coast of this island around a little bit. We're going to kind of cheat in here and cut this a little bit. Get ourselves over the island. There's so many trees out here. Oh, there we go. Losing altitude again. Just try and hold about 1,000 feet. Try and get an idea of where the airport is, because we're coming up on the town. I know it's not too far from there. Some nice little turbulence. Yeah, here we go. Go ahead and start powering it down. I think the airport is going to be off our left wing. Yep, there it is. So we're actually going to do something that would be a little bit frowned upon, I'm sure. But we're going to kind of teardrop it in here. The airport kind of snuck up on me there. Get all the flaps down. This will be a
500.
short turn to final here. That's probably why they probably want you approaching off over from the right, but alas, I lost quite a bit of altitude there. Oh, a little bit off to the right. Nevertheless, the biggest airport here. Landed successfully, pretty smooth. Not a great setup for the approach, but smooth nonetheless. This thing handles weird on the ground, man. We'll go ahead and just get nice and parked up right here. Go through turning stuff off real quick. So parking brake is going to be on, strobes off, nav off. Let's see, avionics off, P2 heat off, and then we will mixture out. I'll do fuel cut off, close the cowl flap, alternator, battery. Yeah, ignition should have come off as well. Anyways, guys, that is a nice little short flight. Some airports you should definitely check out if you're into flight sims, Microsoft Flight Simulator, that kind of thing. This is a huge passion of mine. I really do enjoy flying, so I hope you enjoyed this little trip. Obviously, if you're a subscriber, you're kind of used to the videos I normally do. If this wasn't for you, I completely understand. There'll be a little bit of this just because, like I said, it is something I really enjoy and am passionate about. So if you do enjoy it, and you want to see some more flying, stuff like that, let me know. And if you don't, I completely understand. You can let me know that as well. So either way, I hope you all enjoyed the flight. And if you're thinking about picking this up and you've used some of the older flight sims, I would highly recommend it. It's a massive step up over even the last FSX. I mean, that aged quite a bit, quite rapidly. So a ton of fun and a nice little short flight here. So I hope you all enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye-bye.